Hello and welcome to part 3 of the Heading Outside series, and we start in here today at the station area where I'm doing a bit of track remodelling. I've replaced this deck of this part of the railway as the previous one had bent really badly in the winter and wasn't level at all, but this new plank seems to be level, and I'm going to put some metal brackets on to keep it that way so that it doesn't go banana shaped like its predecessor. I'm also going to move the crossover onto one solid piece of wood. As you can see, the gap in between these two planks, this has a tendency to move with the humidity, and having points on this isn't favourable as it can move them and damage them. So I'm going to be moving them. Also in this video, I'm going to continue around the corner there, past the greenhouse, and hopefully extend it into the shed at its eventual destination of Dresden Hague. Now that the track has been relayed on this part, you can see the crossover there now fits nicely on its new gravel board base, and track lane has continued a bit further on. Looking around from where I've been track laying, we can also see the curve and the extension towards the garden shed. Now, poor planning on my part has made this bit a lot tighter than I would have liked. I should have started the curve earlier before I put the posts in, but hey ho, we have to work with what we've got. These set track third radius curves are going to allow me to squeeze the double track main line around this corner without looking too squeezed, so we'll see how that goes later on. I've also laid the track foundation along the side of the greenhouse and everything is fastened into place. There's a barrier there for the raspberry plants to stop them encroaching on the railway, and at this point I really did think we were making some good progress. It looks good, it's solid, and as if anybody needs any proof, you can see there that it's all on the level. Now that this extension has reached this part, we're going to now look at continuing over into the shed. Now originally I was going to remove these two water butts, but the logistics of moving all the water in them, I'm just not going to bother. I can access the taps and my planned posts are going to be, so I'm going to leave them where they are. And then the railway there will go through the wall of that wooden shed. I'm also going to build a bridging piece here so that people can walk through, and I'm going to try and incorporate these Hornby arch bridges as I quite like them. So for what you will be a few seconds, took me a week or more around work, and here we have the last of the deck to be built from the water butts into the wooden shed. At this point I've also cut a hole in the wall of the wooden shed to accommodate the tunnel to allow the double track main line in, and as I said previous, I'm going to build a bridging part. The track lane is commencing, albeit slowly, and I've also painted that deck in there as you can see. Now if we take a quick look inside the shed, one of the baseboards is up for the terminus that will be inside here. This is plywood that I've had left over, so I'm repurposing it for this. I'm going to insulate the top part of the shed with this polystyrene sheet that I've had knocking around for several years. I knew if I kept it long enough it would come in handy. And then for the backboard I've got some offcuts of OSB wood, which unfortunately the factory I bought them off has now gone out of business and I can't get any more. So I'm going to have to find an alternative source, as this is quite good wood for baseboards and backboards, and I've used it on the main layout in the garage. The baseboards will continue around the back end of that shed and also under the adjacent window to a proposed loading terminal that I'm going to put in there, which is the whole purpose in which the railway was built in the first place. So everything was looking quite good, and I was pleased with the progress that we had. However, then came a prolonged period of extremely hot weather. The thermometer in the greenhouse was as much as it could, and I came out one day to find this part of the railway facing downwards at an alarming angle. The ground has shrunk to an extent that it's pulled the post down with it, and you can see there the gap that has been left. However, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, and I had to repair that, I found yet more damage from the heat. The level crossing that has been on the railway for over a year has suffered extremely badly. You can see there that it is warped and it has pulled the rails out of alignment. So not only have I now got to fix this problem, I've also got to find a new crossing. That is horrendous, and that is all for the heat that we had over the last few weeks. It has bent it and melted it beyond any possible reuse. The plastic has also gone extremely brittle from having been heated up to an extent. When we were in the throes of the heat wave, I couldn't touch the rails out here. They were that hot. You couldn't physically touch them. So I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board with this, and I may even have to take the whole thing up and replace the entire deck. As you can see here, I've had to make adjustments with it. The gravel board moves. It expands, it contracts, it shrinks, it bends, it bows. It's just not suitable for this sort of thing. It was an experiment when I started building it, and initially it was really good. But it's just not up to purpose. When these gravel boards are on a fence, they don't tend to move like this, but when they're upended and supported, they are no good for a railway. They seem to need more bracing as the older they get, and they are cracking quite badly as a result of all the heat. And here you can see I've had to disconnect the track as the boards moved to an extent that one was a lot higher than the other. Before I remove it all though, I'm going to show you the progress we had made before the problems with the wood surfaced. And we'd laid the track all the way down, and as I said before, I'd constructed this bridging section with the Hornby arch bridges, and also laid the track on this part that goes up to the shed. The signal gantry there controls the entrance, and there was a crossover both ways outside the wooden shed. When I made this was all level as it was cut from one piece of wood, but now you can see there's quite a lip on that side, and the same with the other side where the gravel boards have moved and bowed in the weather that we've had. It is a shame as it was starting to look good, and the first train was due to run across here in the summer. But replacing the deck, I'm going to redo that crossover outside as I don't need the two sets of points anymore. Inside the shed, this track has all been laid, and this will remain unchanged as I laid this in the warm heat so the rails have not expanded. Using MDF platforms, there's a couple of bay platforms over there and a few storage sidings in the front. And over the back there is going to be a small MOD depot so that we can run the Hatton's Warwell and the Trains for You war flat wagons and put military vehicles on. Going round to the back, we've got this turntable that was scratch built by one of my friend's fathers, and I've inherited it and included it in this railway. And then over this side, as previously mentioned, we've got this stone loading terminal, which gives the railway a purpose as to why it actually goes into the shed. So the preserved line is taken over by the preservationists, but ARC or Redland still come here occasionally and use this loading terminal, which gives an excuse to run full-length mainline trains out in the garden. This scratch-built hopper was made from an old Bob the Builder toy, and it actually works. You lift the top up and you can pour the sand or stone through it and load the wagons individually, which gives a great deal of play value, especially when I'm doing this with my young son. So as I said, most of this outside in the shed here will stay as it is. It's just the outside part that we're going to need to change. So it is a shame that we won't be running trains in here this year, but hopefully early in the spring we will be able to run trains all the way around. As you can see, this will be the easiest part to do as the track isn't wide in, so it'll be a case of lifting the track up and replacing the deck, whereas the other half of the layout is all wired into the bus wire, and that will require considerable more work with a lot more solder. I'm going to replace the deck with 18mm ply, as this sheet of wood has been stood outside and loved for about 5 years since I moved in, and it's got the remnants of an old layout on the other side, and it's been stood outside in all weathers, in winter, summer, in heats, and it hasn't rotted, it hasn't moved, it hasn't even bent slightly. So this is the wood I'm going to get to redo the entire deck for the Garden Railway, which is probably what I should have done in the first place. I'm going to upcycle this piece of wood, and this will probably be utilised for the new station area, which is currently on the gravel boards. And I've also replaced the level crossing. I'll just remove the pigeon guards, as the pigeons were known for breaking the barriers off, and I've replaced this just to get one more running session under the belt. So that's the update for the Garden Railway. It's not as good news as I'd have hoped, but I did manage to get one more running session in before we start disassembling it and replacing the deck. And it's a green diesel gala, featuring nothing but British Railways green diesels. So enjoy that, and I'll catch you in the next one when hopefully we get to mend and repair the garden railway and get it up to full spec again.
Lucy.
Oh, and I can't see you in the way. Didn't do that. Stop. Typical Gala weather. And if you can compare them two images of the previous one, this has actually fallen down since I moved it to do the rest of the running session, because I had some other locos to run, a 25 and a 50. But after a couple of days with nothing, it's sunk again. The whole post has gone. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take this off, and I'm going to either have to dig the post out and reset it or something, because that was level, and as you can see there is a pronounced kink, and then if you go closer it's actually buckling the rails now, and that rail is actually lifted off the board. So this bit especially is done. But the good news is I went out today and I've got the new deck. I've got the plywood, it's all been cut, So I'm going to start this in the next couple of days. It's the middle of August when I film this. So hopefully in the next 4 or 5 weeks I should have another video out updating you. Because all it is a case of lifting the track, cutting the droppers, pulling the wiring through, and then relaying the deck and putting all the lights of these back on. So I'm going to have to strip it all down and go from there. So yeah, there we go. Not very good at all. There's something quite clearly wrong with the foundations on that post at the moment. Inside on the Preserved Line railway station, the engines that didn't quite make the gala. You got a Class 25, a Cobweb Stroon 03 there, which is a new addition to the fleet. And then you got a BR Green 50 or Great Western Green 50 and 2 20s. So yeah, hopefully though, when the deck's been replaced, we'll get those out and get a good running session with all of those. But unfortunately for now, the Daisy Line Steam Railway is closed for major structural and operational repairs. So until next time, I'll see you again. Please subscribe or consider subscribing if you haven't already. Give us a thumbs up for the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.